now from Hollywood, California, the horror capital of the world, the Boulet brothers, creatures of the night.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm going to jump right in today because we have a lot to get to this episode.
Yes, we do. I think there's 3 or 4 episodes of The Last of Us to catch up on. Some amazing listener questions, all the updates that Ian will be bringing us a little bit later from the world of horror. Tons of good stuff to talk about.
But before we get into it, there is something that I've been wanting to talk about on the podcast. And it is this idea that certain conservative politicians and conservative political groups are attempting to introduce and pass bills that would classify businesses that host drag shows as adult entertainment venues. And what that essentially means for listeners that haven't been paying attention to this is that by classifying these businesses as adult venues, they're essentially putting them out of business, right? So they're kind of like stopping businesses that want to host drag shows because it does something like, I believe it's something like you can't have a drag show within 1,000 feet of like a church or a school or anywhere that kids would be, or like parks for some reason. I don't get the park thing. But anyways, so the real motivator of these groups and politicians behind these laws is to push the narrative that the art of drag is somehow sexual in nature or inappropriate for kids. There's this whole narrative that drag artists are somehow coming after children in some sort of sexually predatory kind of way. When I first heard all this, I'm like, off the cuff, I'm like, yeah, I don't think some drag shows are appropriate for kids,
They're
right?
not everything, but that can kind of be applied to everything, right?
Well, yeah. And I thought about it and I thought, okay, so this is coming from like a religious perspective. And what I was thinking was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we've learned through history that the place where kids have seemed to be sexually abused the most is the church, right?
The church is definitely a place where that has been known to happen more and more and more and more.
Yeah. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's ever been a story of a kid being sexually assaulted by a drag artist, right?
Not that I can recall.
Yeah, so I'm kind of confused, like why it seems like conservative groups are just sort of trying to find something to jump on, because I don't see drag shows as somehow sexually influential in nature. What do you think about that?
I mean, look, I think it's kind of they're capitalizing and cannibalizing like the fear of the unknown, right? Like someone who doesn't share or live within the same sexual like landscape that you do. And let's be real, Americans are like really scared by sex. We're programmed to be scared of sex. You'd so much quicker see someone get their head blown off and get their body like cut in half. And that movie goes on to be opening and expanding into all these different theaters across the country before you would see like full frontal nudity where people literally like lose their mind. So I think we're kind of programmed to be scared of stuff that has to do within the realm of your own sexuality. And now forget people who live like in a lifestyle that you don't, or you can't relate to, or God forbid you're against the church. I think that people are kind of like just using that to split us all up, to keep people kind of infighting. It's a little bit of sleight of hand, right?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, look, also the misconception, like we don't want your kids.
Oh, absolutely.
Like what I'm like, yeah, I'm okay if you ban kids from drag shows, but I also want you to ban them from restaurants, movie theaters, airplanes, or anywhere else that I am. I'm okay with you to ban them. Just keep them. If you love them so much and you want to protect them, I think you should keep them home, away from everyone.
Until they're 18, keep them 1,000 feet away from every drag queen on earth. I would be a happier person.
Me too. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of making a joke of it, but I don't know. I think there's a weird irony there because, okay, yeah, you could say, well, maybe some drag shows are not appropriate for kids. Okay, great. But then I think about the worst, most offensive Lady Bunny show I've ever been to, right? And then I think about like logging into like a Call of Duty game and just reading the general chat for like 5 seconds. And I mean, within like 10 minutes, your wig is ripped off. I mean, you've been called a faggot 10 times. You rape jokes. Like,
oh my God.
It's just
the culture is nasty.
Incessant racial jokes. I mean, it's absurd. So it's strange because people are fine with their kids going into these video games and these general global chat channels and seeing all this stuff, or even hearing people invent or whatever the kids are using these days.
Yeah.
You're hearing all this stuff. You're seeing all this stuff. There's all these like streamers with their like towel and up to under their chin with their headsets but that's okay. It's odd what people choose to pick.
I think that's what it is. It's cherry picking.
It's cherry picking.
And unfortunately, the drags are getting it right now.
It's anti-gay bias. That's what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just to address that, it's like the question is like, are we still talking about whether or not it's choice, right? Is it nurture or nature? And this whole idea of like, what do they call that? I don't even think about it enough. I can't even recall the name when they send you away to camp and try to de-gay you. Conversion and all that shit. I'm like, do you think anyone on the planet would choose to be part of an ostracized group that is so, discriminated against and even criminalized in some places in the world? And it's like, hey, yeah, that's what I want to be a part of. I say leave it up to the parents, right? Let's trust the parents that they know what's best for their child. Some children are very immature. I was very immature as a child, but some people are mature and they can handle certain subjects, and let's rely on the parents' ability to judge for their own children's well-being.
I just think, whether you're conservative or liberal leaning, whatever it is, I wish that we could inspire people to question where this stuff comes from. Because if you use your logical brain and you think about it, you're like, what danger have I ever seen presented from a drag show? Really, it's like none. But like I said, anywhere your kid is going to go, and I mean elementary school, video game chat rooms, whatever, you're going to see 1,000 times worse. So I'm not really sure that people are using critical thinking when they're examining it. It's really just something to gas people up. It seems weird. It seems like this is anti-gay. Let's use it to attack people. And that's really all it is. How can I prove I'm more conservative than the next person?
Yeah,
it's that game,
all of that posturing. It's true. And the fact is, drag is an art, and it is a light for a lot of people, especially young queer people who don't see themselves in a lot of other expressions in the world. And to kind of try to gatekeep that and keep it away from people, it's a shame. It's kind of disgusting.
I think so too, because growing up queer, it's already so ostracizing. And if you're queer in a small town, you might look to the art of drag as very inspiring to you, very validating. So to take that away from someone seems sort of unnecessarily harsh. Look, I don't create drag content that's designed for kids. You take it or leave it. I really think it's up to parents. Some parents would say, hey, I don't think your show is appropriate to bring a kid to. I'm like, that's fine. It's totally fine with me. Some would say, hey, my kid really loves this. And we've heard people tell us stories about how their kids love the show and why they love the show and what it means to them. And I'm like, that's great too. Like, however you see it, it's fine. I just don't think it's right to sort of take it and turn it into a political hot button issue for clickbait on Fox News.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, we told you what we think, but what do you at home think? Write in and let us know your thoughts at creatures@BouletBrothersDragula.com, and be sure to buy tickets to our upcoming world tour for all your toddlers, preschoolers, and juvenile delinquents at DragulaLive.com.
Oh, I love you for that, Drac. We're going to take a break, and we will be right back. Hello, lovers. It's Swanthula Boulet here, and I've got some very exciting news for you. The Boulet Brothers Dragula Titans Tour is set to terrorize the US, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, and tickets for the show are now available at DragulaLive.com. As many of you know, Drac and I are infamous for throwing some of the best parties in the world, and this drag show is going to be no exception. So if you love drag that's dark and disturbed, and prefer punk rock over pretty and pink, this is it. Join the Boulet Brothers, Victoria Black, Coco Kane, Hoso Teratoma, Eva Destruction, and all of the stars of the Boulet Brothers Dragula Titans for the filthiest and most fabulous drag show on Earth. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, darlings, so get your tickets now with VIP upgrades at DragulaLive.com. Do it now, before it's too late. All right, darlings, welcome back. And let's also welcome to the show our horror news corporeal correspondent, Ian.
Oh my god, hello. Who is she?
Hit us with the news, darling. Hit us with the news.
Attention all survivors of the Boulet brothers' horror capital quarantine zone. We've received numerous reports from the surrounding QZs that horror content is continuing its takeover of mainstream media and that the end is truly upon us. I repeat, all survivors located in the horror capital QZ, prepare for the end, as the streets are soon to be filled with all manner of nightmares ready to keep you up through the few hours that remain. Reanimating from the dead, quite literally in one instance, are 2005's Constantine and 2007's I Am Legend, which are both receiving the sequel treatment according to Deadline and are top priorities for the team at Warner Brothers. While the J.J. Abrams Constantine sequel was previously thought to be dead in the water at HBO Max, it seems as though a renewed interest in horror has resurrected it alongside Will Smith's maligned zombie, vampire, monster film based on the book of the same name.
I can't recall that one.
It is so fucking good.
Is it really?
Oh my.
How did that slip through my little fingers?
Girl, oh my gosh. Actually, you would love it. Tilda Swinton plays an androgynous Gabriel.
Done.
It's fabulous.
Done. Like, that's all I need to hear. But
Faboosh.
I can talk about I Am Legend.
Oh my God. Have you read the book?
I did not read the book, but I did see that trash ass movie.
The movie sucked.
Not good. I think anyone universally would agree with me. A remake would be exciting because we need to see those monsters, vampires, zombies, whatever you want to call them, real. We need to see actual people doing it. I couldn't get by the CGI. It was so terrible.
It's interesting because the movie is actually going to be a sequel to I Am Legend, which, hi, spoiler alert, this movie came out in 2007. Will Smith's character dies at the end of that movie, and they're actually going back and retconning the original to include the original ending of the book where he lives. So it's going to star Michael B. Jordan and Will Smith, and hopefully will not be as much of a dumpster fire as the 2007 one.
Yeah. Let's hope.
And while no one really cares about sports, the recent Super Bowl airing not only moved the release of HBO's The Last of Us Episode 5 2 days early, but it also brought with it a slew of horror content in its sweaty, smelly wake. Brand new TV spots for 65, Adam Driver's Jurassic Park with Guns sci-fi thriller, and Scream 6 dominated headlines, as well as a collaborative ad for Netflix and General Motors featuring parodies of Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead, Squid Game, and Stranger Things. I can hear the clickers, clicking at my doorstep and scuttling outside the studio, but I wanted to ask you both. Is horror having a motherfucking moment? Do you see things slowing down anytime soon, or have we not even reached the peak of terror in the mainstream?
I'm going to say it's continuing to have a moment. I think this started sort of around pandemic times, it was starting to really pick up. And it's only gotten bigger and better from there. You see more studios dumping more dollars in it. You see more box office records being broken all the time from horror content.
Absolutely.
Even TV, Wednesday, which I think is part of the horror family.
Yeah, horror hosts are winning like makeup awards from the Makeup and Hair
By the
Guild.
way,
Could you
congratulations
imagine?
on that. We forgot to speak about that.
Let's talk about it for a minute right now.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah,
That's part of the Hollywood horror news.
That is the Hollywood
Okay,
horror
so let
news,
me tell you
mama.
for everyone, listeners at home that maybe don't know what this award is. The reason that this award is a big deal is because this is from the Makeup and Hairstylist Guild. These are the people that make all the best movies and TV shows. Wakanda Forever is represented there. Wednesday, Stranger Things,
American Horror Story,
and American Horror Stories both were up for awards. And yeah, so the way that this is run is that the people that vote for these awards are only the people that work in the industry. So the people who voted for us in our category were people that also do makeup and hair for all the movies and TV shows that you love. So to me, it felt like a real honor to receive this reward because it's from people that actually know what they're talking about.
100%. And I just want to kind of cue in my perspective. I was just dazzled to be part of the gala. Like, we walked in and we were immediately embraced by this revolving door of the most fabulous artists in Hollywood. Seriously, it was at the
Can I
Beverly
tell the
Hilton.
story?
Oh yeah, please do.
Okay, this is
Tell it.
So we didn't know exactly what we were getting into. We knew that we were nominated and we were honored and we showed up, and it was a lot bigger of a deal than I think we realized. So we're sitting there, and this is right off the bat, Angela Bassett on stage making a speech.
My
So
God.
I'm like,
I was craning my neck. I'm like, is she here? And I looked. Bitch,
yeah, and then I'm
looking
like,
flawless,
wait, so
flawless.
then there's Jason Alexander from Seinfeld is on stage giving a speech, which quickly followed the person announcing us as the winner. So we followed the first people to follow after those two acts. And I was like, and I had no idea. I mean, I really did not. It's not that I didn't think we deserved to win, but we're sort of new to that world. Because, we don't dig into the awards thing very much.
Sure.
And so we were surprised, and I certainly didn't have anything planned. So when they called our name, it was such a surreal moment. I have to thank Swan
yes.
because that's one of the moments that you shine. Like you sauntered up to the podium and you made the speech, and it was like you had an aura. I was like, thank God, because if that had fallen on me, I didn't even think about winning, so I had not zero anything prepared. So I was like, thank God you were there.
Well, you're so welcome. And I wasn't really cognizant of it. And then we got there and I'm like, damn, this is so fabulous. And I'm like, let me look in this playbill because I'd like to be prepared just in the off chance, like, where is our award? And I could barely see. And I'm like, our friend Glenn Allen, who's an amazing drag artist and does tons of work for other shows. I'm like, Glenn, can you help me find our nomination? Like, where are we? And she's like, oh, you're first. And I was like, ooh, like, I have about 4 seconds to get this shit together. In the off chance they called our name, which they did. And I got up there in my velvet gown with the high cut leg and the low cut chest.
You looked so good.
It was stunning glamour, Hollywood glamour, and I did serve it.
You did. And so this award was for us doing our own makeup. So it was for the Boulet brothers as makeup artists on ourselves, you know? So all the stuff that was submitted was screenshots of us through the season of Titans on ourselves, obviously. So it was much more kind of beauty makeup. It wasn't like a special effects makeup award. So yeah, I don't know. It was really humbling to receive it, and it was kind of special, and congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations to you two. That really is my favorite Hollywood news of the moment.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sorry to bombard your news section with our one.
No, I'm sorry. Hi, if the world is going to be engulfed in flames and the clickers are truly coming out from under the earth, I want everyone to know that the Boulet brothers have won this major award.
So congratulations to us, but I also want to go back to what Ian was saying earlier, and I just want to say how considerate the people over there at The Last of Us are by bringing out the episode a couple of days early so we didn't get bombarded by an event we don't give a shit about.
I always hate that when they do that on Housewives. They're like, the Super Bowl is later this week, so we're going to hold back the episode. I'm like, fuck you and everything you stand
You're
for.
like, put it out early.
Yeah. See, they did the right thing. The Last of Us continues to do things the right way.
Yes, they do.
And speaking of The Last of Us, thanks for those news bits, Ian. Now we're moving on and we're digging into this episode's creature feature movie review, which on this episode is actually a review of the ongoing streaming series sensation, The Last of Us. And tonight we're discussing episodes 3 through 5.
What a perfect segue.
Ooh, segue.
So before we begin, I want to point out to listeners that this show is just blowing up. It's performing remarkably well. And I wanted to ask you both, what do you attribute to this show's success? Like, why do you think it's working so well?
The story is good. The story is good. It's that simple. Like, you're working with great clay and it's building a beautiful piece of art. It's just good to look at from every angle.
I agree. I think that there's a real attention to the original story as well as making it accessible for people who have never played the game. The acting is fantastic. The makeup is great. It's gripping. And I just love it. What about you, Drac?
I think it's Ellie. I think she's so likable that no, I'm kidding.
Wow.
She is
Your
becoming,
favorite.
she's becoming more likable.
Yeah.
Becoming more likable. Obviously, they wrote her to be kind of a brat in the beginning, but she has become slightly more likable.
I like her snarkiness. I
Yeah.
like her heart around the edges. It's cute.
I think that you will continue to like her. I think her character, if they stick with the game, just continues to get better with time.
Interesting.
Let's talk about episode 3 because this is where we left off. And I thought I loved this show after episodes 1 and 2.
Ooh.
And then there was such a thing. I mean, you could literally feel the energy around episode 3. And I didn't see it on the Sunday when it came out. I watched it days later. So I was avoiding spoilers online. But I did get, some whispers of like the queer content. And I was like, oh, this is kind of exciting because that's a choice to include in a game or a film about being some of the last people on Earth, or at least look like some of the last people on Earth. Because as a queer person, we already exist in a very minimal space. There's not as many of us as there are of them. So it was nice to see this story. But what did you think, Drac, after 3?
I felt like this was probably one of the most important depictions of gay characters that I've seen on TV in a long time.
Maybe ever.
Yeah, because
agree.
for me, as someone that grew up in a rural area who spent more time sort of like around survival things or hunting or trucks or things like that, rather than like, things that you typically associate with being gay, like glamour or fashion or I thought that this was a really realistic depiction of, hey, all gay people are not the same. And the fact that it's just odd. Okay, yeah, there's this end of the world scenario and you just happen upon this gay dude who is just a non-traditional or what you don't typically think of, which I think is something important. Hollywood typically depicts gay men in the same kind of way,
Mhm.
And I thought that this was just really refreshing to see. And it was like heartfelt. And I really loved that it didn't, how can I say this? I felt like it didn't take the cheap way out at the end because I felt like for fan service, what they would have typically done is I'm going to present this heartwarming story, but to appease my horror fans at the end, I'm going to show them as zombies or I'm going to show them jump up against the wall, mangled looking. And they didn't do that. They just ended it beautifully. And that was it. And I mean, it was just heart wrenching. It was beautiful.
I cried. I mean, I don't cry. I mean, I shed a couple of tears. The last time I've shed a tear, I was like a child, literally. Like my life has just taught me a harder way, and I don't really cry over media at all. But this beautiful human story was unbelievably personal and touching. And you said they depicted the story of gay people, and it kind of showed not all gay people are the same, which thank God they did because we don't get enough representation like that. But all people are the same. I felt like a straight person or a conservative person or any person could watch this and just see like this is about human connection and the need for love and to be loved, and anyone can relate to that. It just takes the preference or the gender or the sexuality out of it completely and just kind of lays bare the human connection.
I think that's absolutely one of the largest strengths of the episode is, yes, this is a queer love story, but at its core, it is just a story about love and about finding love in sort of this completely random happenstance and what you will do for someone that you love. And I really do think that it has a universal appeal. I love this episode. I think that the way they handle the storyline is honestly, I think that they have righted one of the wrongs of the video game in the most beautiful way. I am so thrilled with this episode.
It was devastating.
Oh, I literally at one point, I mean, hi, I'm a crier. Mama, I love me some tears. And I was like weeping, and I literally had to pause. I was like, this episode is so painful.
Well, one of the things I think is interesting, I saw this, I'm going to assume you did. I don't know if you would as much, but I saw a parallel to the lonely. And they were together and alone because of the fact that it was apocalypse zombie thing. It felt very much to me parallel with like the AIDS crisis, right? Like being with your partner being sick like that and having nobody around and sort of taking care of them yourself as they aged and all that. And it very much, I felt like it harkened back to that feeling a lot. Yeah.
And you only have this one person or a very small number who would be willing to take care of you, that kind of thing.
And that's the thing. Like I would have hoped that it would have appealed more to more quote straight or conservative viewers, because I think it does show a story of, hey, these are two human beings, like regardless of their genitalia or their whatever their, how they identify.
Or their hot bodies.
This is my motherfucking God, Frank Diva.
It's a touching story. And I would have hoped that it resonated with more people. It probably did resonate with more people, but of course we're hearing so much about these conservative people that they got a bad backlash on the episode.
Look, we can't blame them because their world is getting a little bit more uncomfortable because the queer people and the gay people and all of the others are done being quiet, and we're making some space for ourselves now. So everybody
in the jail, in our drag dress,
in the afterlife, in the underworld, in the apocalypse, like we're all here, sweetie. You gotta get used to it. Yeah.
Well, I think too, it's interesting. Like The Last of Us, when it debuted as a game, it is a beloved game. It's won tons of awards, and it had a huge fan base of diverse people, but also a lot of neck-bearded Mountain Dew conservative gamer bros. However, the game expands a lot in terms of diversity over the course of the first game, the DLC, and the second game, to which Bella Ramsey, who plays Ellie, was quoted recently. I don't remember what the magazine is, but she said that to anyone who is lamenting the queer inclusion, get used to it, because there is way more to come. And that's true. There are so many other examples of queer characters that you've yet to meet.
Great. I'm excited.
What's his name? The big
Bill.
No, the zombie, the comes later. So is the bloater gay? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, in the fan fiction that you can read on my my vlog,
that you are actually responsible
on my
for.
Zanga.
All right.
I do want to applaud the writing though, because there was subtlety in those depictions of gay men, and I picked up on it within seconds.
Yes,
I was like, ooh, oh, and I said it to Drac. I was like, she's gay. I'm like,
Oh my God.
that's a gay person right there.
Mama, when Bill is pouring the wine, he's like, oh, it's a this. And, oh, well, I know I don't seem like the type. And Frank goes, oh, you do. I was like, oh, they gonna be fucking.
That's weird. I felt like I could see the gay subtext immediately when he didn't shoot him in the hole. I don't know why.
That sounded wrong.
Not the Infinity Pool review, too.
Kill me.
You did it.
Blame it on the edit.
All right, so we loved episode 3. I think it was pretty universally praised, and the writing was great. And we moved on to episode 4, and this is where Joel and Ellie took a detour through Kansas City. They crashed. They kind of meet this militia, and they meet Kathleen, the terrible Kathleen, who is also happens to be the terrible, what's her name?
Shauna
from the Yellow Jackets.
I'll just say it right here. I am a Melanie Linsky stan.
I was like, are you kidding me? How did Shauna show up in this damn show
and ruin The Last of Us?
Seriously.
Oh my God. And I am over here. I'm like, I have a Hunter's sweatshirt now. I have I salute a picture of Kathleen every morning. I live for
I was
Kathleen.
like, how the hell did this lady take over the whole militia with her mousy voice? I was like,
that's
no.
what makes her so brilliant.
No,
yes.
no
Oh
one
my
would listen
God.
to her.
Girl, that's what makes her a brilliant villain. She's so sweet and she's so innocent and naive and then just shoots people in cold blood. She's ruthless. I live for Kathleen. I live for Kathleen's, spoiler, death in episode 5.
I was going to say, you didn't live for that long.
Well,
I did.
But again, this is the second episode with no infected present, right? What did you all think about that?
I liked it just as much as all the other. Maybe like number 3 was my favorite, but I continued to love the show. I think at the end of the show, I looked over to you. I can't remember if I said it to you or you said it to me, but one of us was like, God, The Last of Us is just so good. And this episode was so different. It's a standalone because it's kind of quiet in a way. It really just stars the 2 main characters most of the time. Of course, they're under a threat, but it's a different type of threat. There's people and there's this militia and it's a urban landscape instead of like the wilderness. And I enjoyed it just as much as I did the more bombastic moments or the heartfelt gay story.
It's not really about, quote, zombies or infected. It's more about the humans and how they respond to this post-apocalyptic world, not necessarily what caused this world, right? It's kind of like people living in COVID. We're not talking about COVID. We're talking about how people are living around it.
Accurate.
Which the fact that they can keep the show as on the edge of your seat, compelling as it is pretty impressive.
So good.
Okay, so not a ton happens this episode though, right? So
I think at the end, for me, the messaging was, and I felt like this after The Walking Dead, I felt like this when I watch other zombie movies, the scariest part of the post-apocalyptic zombie world are the surviving people, period.
Yeah, I think episode 4, you're right. There's not a whole lot of like objective events that happen, but I think that episode 4 is really there to solidify Joel and Ellie's relationship and their friendship.
So episode 4 is shit. We're going to move on to episode... No, I'm kidding.
Damn.
So moving on to episode 5, a lot happens in this episode. So we see the truce between Joel, Ellie, Henry, and Sam. We see them sort of going through the suburbs, and they're being pursued by Kathleen and the militia, which I do say, if I have a bone to pick with this particular episode, it was that it did go into that fantasy realm for a minute where you have like hordes of zombies, you have militia people, and here's Ellie dodging everything like a ninja and like surviving where people are getting slaughtered all over her, but somehow she survives because she's the main character and she has to. And I thought that was a little annoying, but
well, she also has a sniper who's taking out her assailants.
But that was, you know what? Well, see, that it's something you were mentioning earlier felt very video gamey to me, which made me accept it.
You can see, okay, this challenge, you have to go into the house, pick up the sniper rifle, get to the window, and like this is your challenge if you can get through that level. Yeah. Very video game behind the series.
I've never played the game, but I know probably something like that had to happen. And so then we go from that with the zombie army attack, which was really interesting, the collapse of the ground and how all that went down. And what did you all think of a Kathleen dying there? Like that was unexpected, right?
I don't know if I would consider it to be unexpected because I think that The Last of Us is a world in which you're lucky to live one episode. Unless you're Joel or Ellie, hi, you get 1, you get 2. Wow, big storyline for you. And I think that Kathleen's death is really ironic and poetic. She is essentially saying, you saved this kid for no reason. Kids die all the time. And then a literal child infected tears her face off. I was like, oh my God, yes, go off, little queen.
I do want to point out, though, that it's probably not as surprising to you because you've played the game and you know what's going to happen.
That is true. Also, the fact that Kathleen is not in the game at all. So,
Oh, is she not?
Yeah, no.
Oh, okay.
I'm excited to talk about the differences between the game and the show because they're
Let's do it. So
yeah.
up to this point, what is different or what is the same?
I want to go back to episode 3 because this is something that is very different from the game. In the game, Bill and Frank's relationship is hinted at through one item description. And it's a note that you can find and you can give it to Bill. And it's really sad because essentially it is Frank saying, I hate you. We had this life that we built together and you're obsessed with being this doomsday prepper. You ruined my life. I would rather get killed by the infected than live with you for one more day. And it is brutal and sad and heartbreaking. So the fact that they took an entire episode to rewrite that narrative and say, hey, let's give these two characters a happy ending in a world that's so filled with bleakness and sadness. I'm like, that takes balls, mama.
We all
live.
could have wrote that note to our partners at some time, right?
I wrote it to myself this morning.
I hate you, and I'd rather die by the infected to spend one more time with you. You look up from your sink and you're staring at the mirror.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Hey, sorry I wrote that note to you. I just needed to eat breakfast. My blood sugar was a little out of whack, so let's just forget it.
Been there. Yeah.
Love you.
Episode 5 has a couple of departures, namely Kathleen is not a part of the game. We do get to meet the hunters, so that is part of it. We don't have any hordes in the first game, but the death of Henry and Sam is one of the, I think, the saddest moments of the first game, and that is something that is true in the show and in the game.
I mean, obviously, since we didn't play it, I had no idea. And it seemed like they were set, if this was The Walking Dead, this would have been like, okay, this is the rest of the season. It's going to
100%.
show how we're going to battle Kathleen by the end,
Yep.
save the day, get Henry and Sam out of there.
Ellie and Sam are now new best friends and
Oh,
will
yeah.
be forever.
But
yeah.
they just took that right out.
No.
As someone that's unfamiliar with the game, and I'm asking you, Swan, in particular,
Mhm.
but you're very familiar with games of this style. Like, do you feel that you're seeing shots and writing that accurately give viewers the same sort of game style adventure feeling? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you know how when you're playing a game, you feel like stories envelop in a certain way, and you can tell something's different with the way this show's written compared to other TV shows. Do you feel that?
I do. And I think it comes in and out. Sometimes I'm aware of the quest, the objective,
Yeah.
the adventure. And then other times I'm just engrossed in the story and I'm out of the game. And then I get brought back into the game. And examples might be, we're going to go into the tunnels and we have to get to this point, go into the tunnels to escape Kansas City. And I'm like, that feels like a game objective.
Mhm, totally.
Getting to the house, doing the sniper thing when the zombies attacking the horde. Maybe you're saying there's no horde, but it also felt like maybe they were hunters in the.
Yeah, there were hunters
Mhm.
and there were clickers, and that scene is essentially a shot-for-shot remake of a big battle that happens in the game. So you're totally right.
Yeah, also felt like very much like a game. Now the bloater's appearance too, maybe it happened at another point in the game, but I felt like this is giving boss energy of like 1,000, and
Yeah.
I love the variation of the infected, like the generic feeder sort of like hive, and then there's like the specialty clickers, and now we have an even more unique manifestation, the bloater, which is really kind of awesome. It's very fantasy.
Totally.
So the last thing I want to talk about is, because we've talked about this when we weren't recording the podcast, is the idea of these infected, right? Because we all seem to have a different opinion of it. Now, to me, I am still confused by what these things are.
hmm
I understand that they are, some sort of plant-based fungal whatever. Okay, got it. Spore that takes you over. But like some of them are dead and they're like crumbled or they're glued to a wall and they can't move, and then some of them are like giants. Like what is you all's take on that?
I guess that my take would be, I think that we are not really supposed to know, because in the world of The Last of Us, mass communication and the dissemination of information is so limited that when Kathleen and what's-his-face are seeing the ground bloat and they're kind of like, oh, okay, like we'll just deal with this later. They have no way of knowing, oh, there's clickers and hordes of infected and all these things. And it almost feels like we are sort of on the same page with a lot of the people there of, oh, wait a minute, there are clickers. Oh, and now they do this. Oh, we have a general idea of how long they last, but there's not enough research to definitively say. And I guess I write it off as I'm willing to say, I don't really know.
What about you?
Yeah, I feel like if you were one of the survivors in this world, you wouldn't know. and it would be like word of mouth, or maybe the rare survivor that had a close exchange with one of these creatures and then lived to tell, and then somehow that story got to you. So it's kind of like the Wild West, or, you know, a campaign where you're in a new territory and there's different type of beasts that populate the land. You have to come across them, and it's like your own notes are the only thing you have to go on.
That makes sense. I can see that. I hope there's some sort of clarity, because it's a little confusing to just estimate the real danger that they pose, and how some of the clickers obviously are much more scary than these ones. But then there's the little kid one that was like really bad. And
I
then
know
there was the
it's
giant one who got killed pretty easy. I don't know.
Killed pretty easy, Mama. They was unloading clip after clip
No,
into
I guess
Miss
that's
Bloater.
true. But yeah, I guess he was disposed of rather quickly compared to like.
I know it would be comforting to know everything right up front, but you have to just embrace chaos and just see what happens.
Well, that's one of the things I actually like about the show, is I do think that they came right out on the first couple of minutes of episode 1 and it's like, this is what the story is. And I was like, thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
let's move
Yeah,
on.
Totally.
All right, so that's it for this episode's creature feature movie review. But for those loyal listeners who consider themselves honorary members of our Junior Mints Movie Club, we're going to give you a heads up on what we're going to be watching and discussing next on the podcast. For our second ever standalone movie review that's coming up next week, we're going to be watching and reviewing both Cocaine Bear and the new Winnie the Pooh horror movie. So we've got a bit of a bear theme going on. Congratulations, Ian. So if you'd like to be a part of that discussion, go ahead and watch those 2 movies before next week.
All right, stay tuned, Uglies. We will be right back after these ads. Hello, Uglies. It's that special time of year again, so visit BouletBrothersDragula.com for brand new merch from the wicked world of the Boulet Brothers. T-shirts, keychains, stickers, vinyl copies of the Boulet Brothers debut EP, Time to Die, and a brand new shipment of exclusive merch has just become available at BouletBrothersDragula.com. So if you consider yourself a member of the Dragula Coven and truly practice the dark arts, spend all of your nether coins at BouletBrothersDragula.com. Do it now or die. Welcome back, everyone. It's now time to answer some of our listener questions. So, Ian, will you please do us the honors of choosing and reading a few of the questions to answer?
It would be my pleasure. LJ from Milwaukee writes, do you believe in, quote, guilty pleasures, or should everyone just own up to what they enjoy? And second part, what are some of your guilty pleasures that us fans would be surprised by?
I do not believe in the idea of guilty pleasures. I really think life is too short and you should do whatever you want to do as long as you're not hurting anybody else. I don't think there's a thing as too much. You know what I mean?
Me neither.
Yeah, I think I hate to see
Excess of
people repressed.
everything.
I feel like every time I've tried to embrace, but you know what, do what you want to do. And every time I've tried to like embrace people's, even if it's stuff I'm not into, but I see people go for it, I never see it as unsuccessful. I never see it as unrewarding. I'm like, life's short. The society we live in tries to control you so much and suppress everything. I'm like, just do it.
Exactly.
Eat the cake. Go fuck that guy. Do whatever you want to do.
Yes. Life's short and so am I. So I'm going to denounce. I'm going to denounce the usage of the word guilty pleasures. I'm not going to connect those 2 words ever. And I'm going to call them innocent pleasures.
I want to say this.
Innocent pleasures.
This is something I want to say to people, that I think our society like puts so much on us now, like with social media and comparing yourselves to other people and all this stuff. And you never think you're enough. You know what I mean? And I've seen this said before, and I know that this is true. I think you have to just realize how hot you are when you're young and do it and get into it. Have fun, flirt with people, make out with people, have sex. Like one day you are going to look back at a picture of yourself and be like, I was fucking hot.
That's true.
Like, what the hell was I thinking? You know? And I think that society just tries to make you think that you're not, but you are. So go for it and have fun. If that's what you want.
Jack, I am loving everything you're saying.
Yeah, if that's not what you want, I'm not saying don't do that if that's not your thing. If your thing is eating all kinds of special kinds of food, well, go eat it every night. Eat caviar every day if you want.
I'm going to share an unexpected innocent pleasure of mine. on social media or sometimes in the wee hours, if I'm like looking around, I will get so far pulled into the K-hole, and I'll just say of like self-care. If it comes to like someone getting their hair cut. Like I'll watch someone get their hair cut and like just observe how the stylist is like pulling their bangs to the left or pulling it straight up and how the angle will let the bangs lay. And bitch, like 2 hours later, I'm watching that. I'm watching like microneedling videos where people are getting like,
I don't know how you can watch that.
oh, I love it though, because they're like, their lips are popping, their cheeks are busting, their face and skin looks so like moisturized. I'm like mesmerized by it.
But that stuff hurts a lot more in real life than they act like it does on TikTok. I've gotten I haven't gotten microneedling before, but I've gotten other stuff, and I'm like, why were you looking so cute when you were doing this? Because I'm about to cry. I was like, this shit hurts.
You should try it. It is gloriously painful.
You did it. See, I'm not into that. Guilty pleasures, I mean, like we said, we don't call it that, but something that you might not expect. I do get sucked into TikTok recently. I don't run all of our social medias. I'm not the only one that fools with our social media, but TikTok particularly, I enjoy, and I don't follow anybody because when I first got on TikTok, it's a different kind of thing with the algorithm. Like you're not seeing the same type of stuff that you see on Instagram or Twitter or whatever. It was refreshing to not see the same people doing the same shit. I was like, I don't want to follow everybody that we know. I don't want them to follow me. I just want to see random people that I don't know doing stupid stuff or painting their house or like, I don't know how long it'll stay like that, but for right now, it's a guilty pleasure that you might not expect me to indulge in. But I'm curious, what about you, Ian? Do you have any?
I'll be quick. For me, I don't believe in guilty pleasures either. However, I do firmly believe in things that are solely for you in your own private world. And I think that it's really important to have those things. I have a lot of them. And one of the things that I have in my private world, which not that I don't share them because I'll tell anyone, I don't really care, but it's just things that I enjoy. I love SpongeBob SquarePants, and I will go back and I will rewatch reruns of SpongeBob all the time. Literally, it's my comfort show. Like, I could quote SpongeBob all day long, and I ask myself sometimes, I'm like, why am I like this? And then in my brain, it's like, like I just think about SpongeBob, and I'm like, oh, duh, yeah, that's me.
You're not serious all the time. You're always in a fun kind of jokey mood, but maybe you do carry a lot of responsibility. So I wonder if it's like easy watching or something.
I think that's part of it, as well as I loved SpongeBob as a kid, and I just found there to be a lot of really smart humor in it underneath the surface of a show that is really looks like it's stupid and it's for kids, and it has this reputation of being just kind of the death of like kids' attention spans in society. But I actually think that SpongeBob is a really, really deep lore enriching show. There's so many characters and storylines and humor. I could tell you about the arc of the animation and the writing. Mama, I stan Ms. SquarePants.
Why do I feel like Eva Destruction is like living her life right now, listening to Ian go off about SpongeBob? Eva, if you're out there, I could definitely see her clacking her fingers and being like, yes.
Eva and I do bond over Lady Gaga, though, which, I mean, not a private world thing. Like, I'm a Gaga stan.
Well, another one of my innocent pleasures, as we all know, is like fantasy games and books, Dungeons and Dragons, Warhammer 40K. God, I've been just deep diving into the lore. But Eva just started her first D&D campaign.
Oh, I saw that.
Is she running it or playing it?
No, she's playing it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, maybe we'll get some updates. I'm paying attention, Eva.
Brady in Wisconsin asks, if you were ever going to design your own haunted attraction, what do you think you would base your design off of? Do you think you'd do something similar to the Weekend's maze at Horror Nights and base it off your music? Or do you think you'd draw inspiration from somewhere else?
This is so easy. It's the show. It would totally draw inspiration and make a horror maze out of our show.
Yeah. See, I wouldn't do that. If I had to make it from me, I might pick some of the exterminations.
Well, here's mine. It's a haunted house, and like we can go through the bedroom, and you'll have to go through the latex bed to get to the window, fill them with flesh hooks, and like throw them out the window. I mean, these are like...
I did
throw them out the window, beat them up.
I will say that we had the opportunity to potentially take over a haunted house a couple years ago, and I really... just for a few nights. And I wanted to get some of the Dragula ghouls to come and just work in the haunt that night and just scare people and be in their drag character. I didn't know if they'd be into it because, haunted houses don't pay shit. But I would just for fun. I would love to do it just for fun. But I'd love to have a haunted house. I don't think I would draw inspiration from the show. But I do think it would be maybe more like a old school, like, Universal monsters kind of thing. I love that kind of vibe. So kind of black and white. Yeah.
I would drop at the chance for free to work in a haunted house because I used to do that when I was younger, like in high school and stuff. And I would just like work at the local haunt every Halloween. Oh, so fun. I love scaring people.
Oh my God, you scare me every year we go to Knott's.
Every chance I get. But I also enjoy being scared. So it's an equal opportunity thing for me.
I miss Knott's recently. I'm like, I'm ready. I'm ready to go to like a haunt like that.
Well, I can't say I'll take you to a haunt, but Drac, I'm taking you to Knott's this weekend.
All right.
We're going to the farm.
Allie from Louisville, Kentucky asks, love the podcast so much. It is truly something I look forward to, and my mood instantly improves when I remember that it is a, quote, podcast week. When can we expect a video version of the podcast? Or will it continue to be audio only for the foreseeable future?
I want to apologize to our fans because I know that we mentioned we were going to do a video version of the podcast earlier in the year. We got completely sucked up with Titans unexpectedly. And so we've been delaying it. And now we're going on tour. We were just about to start the video version. And then we, talked with our network and said, you know what? Maybe we should wait. But one thing that we are going to do that you might find interesting is we are going to continue to do the podcast uninterrupted live from the road. So we're going to record podcast episodes at tour stops, and we're going to actually use the audio from them and put them up for everyone to listen to. So that'll be interesting. And then when we get back and we get settled from tour, we're going to do video versions of the podcast.
And I want to just say to Drac, thank you for taking responsibility for your lies by telling all of our fans that we were going to have video versions of the podcast.
Joe in Australia writes, Drac and Swan, we've heard you touch on and tease a few new exciting opportunities/ventures that you have upcoming. Super pumped, can't wait. Will this involve branching out into new territory at all? Can we look forward to a sideways step into an arena we've perhaps not yet seen from you to date? For example, might we see Drac explore something to do with singing, separate from your partner recordings? And that's, of course, no shade to Swan. The few snippets we've been privy to over the years just seem to suggest that Drac is quite the talented vocal artiste.
Well, thank you. That's quite a compliment. I am not pursuing a solo career right now. What do you think? So the projects are coming, but they're kind of in universe, but kind of not, right?
Yeah. Are some of the projects coming up like side steps from what people know us for? I think so, yes. I would say yes.
We're diving more into scripted things. So, whether that be comic books, TV shows, a horror movie, these are the things that we're working on that are sort of not to do with reality shows.
And at the same time, we're very much looking forward to season 5 of the Boulet Brothers Dracula because that is coming down the pipeline. Casting is officially closed. And let me tell you, this next batch of monsters is going to be redefining for the brand. And on that note, that's all the time we have for this episode. Be sure to write us at creatures@bouletbrothersdragula.com if you have questions for us and would like to answer them live on the air. Until next time, uglies. The Boulet Brothers Creatures of the Night is hosted by the Boulet Brothers with their co-host and producer, Ian DeVogler. Engineered and mixed by Carlos Bueno with music by Neuron Spector.